The strange cry in the fog. The fog was thick that morning, thicker than usual. Jack tightened his coat as he walked down the empty road near his workshop. He lived far from the city, on the edge of the human zone on the planet Ravos 9. It was cold, quiet, and lonely, just how he liked it. But something was different today. He paused. There it was again, a sound. A faint sound in the distance. Not the wind, not a machine, not even an animal. It was crying. Jack narrowed his eyes, staring into the white fog. The sound came again. A soft, broken cry, high-pitched. It sounded scared. It sounded young. He hesitated. Probably a wild creature, he said to himself. But something about that cry pulled at him. He grabbed his small flashlight and followed the sound. The fog wrapped around him like a wet blanket. His boots crunched on the gravel. His breath was visible in the air. Then he saw it. A small shadow. He stopped. His heart beat faster. The shape moved. It was crawling. Jack slowly stepped closer, careful, not to make sudden noise. As he got nearer, he could see more clearly. A figure. Small, thin, and shaking. It wasn't human. It was an alien girl. Her skin was a soft purple color, bruised and dirty. Her hair was tangled and stuck to her face. She had cuts on her arms and legs. She wore something torn, almost falling apart, and she was barefoot. In this cold, Jack dropped to one knee. "Hey," he said gently. The girl flinched. Her head jerked up. Her eyes glowed faintly in the mist. Big, terrified eyes. She tried to move away, but she could barely lift her body. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you," Jack whispered. She looked at him like he was a monster. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Only another painful sob. He slowly pulled off his jacket and reached out. "You'll freeze out here. Let me help." She didn't answer. She didn't move. So he moved closer. When he touched her arm, she gasped in fear and tried to crawl, but her body gave up. She collapsed, breathing hard, and curled into a ball. Jack wrapped her in the jacket. "Okay," he muttered. "You're coming with me." Back at his workshop, Jack laid her on a padded table. He turned on the heater and brought a blanket. The girl was still unconscious but breathing. He cleaned her wounds carefully. They were old. Some looked like burns. Others looked like cuts. Deep ones. "Who did this to you?" he whispered. She didn't answer. Jack gave her a small sip of water. She stirred but didn't wake fully. He wrapped her in warm clothes and sat nearby, just watching. She looked so young. Maybe 12. Maybe 15. It was hard to tell with alien species, and she looked broken. Not just physically, but inside. That night, the girl woke up. She opened her eyes and looked around in panic. Jack quickly stood and raised his hands. "It's okay, you're safe, you're inside, warm." She pushed herself back into the corner, her hands shaking. Jack didn't move closer. "I found you outside," he said softly. "You were hurt. I brought you here." She looked at her arms, at the bandages, at the clothes, and then at him. She whispered something. He couldn't understand. He walked slowly to a drawer and pulled out a translator device. He handed it to her and stepped back. She stared at it. After a few seconds, she pressed the button. Her voice came through the translator. It was slow, shaky. "Who are you?" Jack smiled gently. "Name's Jack. I fix ships and machines. I live here." She didn't respond. "What's your name?" he asked. Silence. Then she spoke again. "You take me to hunters?" Jack frowned. "Hunters?" She stared at him hard. "You trap. You sell. Like others." Jack felt a cold chill. "What? No, I'm not like that." She looked down. Her hands gripped the blanket. Jack took a deep breath. "I'm not going to hurt you, or sell you, or do anything bad." Still no answer. Then she whispered a word. Just one. Safe? He looked into her scared eyes and he nodded. Yes. Safe. The girl who feared touch Jack sat across the room, watching her quietly. The alien girl was awake now. Wrapped in a blanket, sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes moved slowly, scanning everything. The tools on the walls, the humming heater, the cracked window, and then him. Every time Jack moved, even a little, she flinched. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just sat still, breathing fast like a frightened animal. Jack didn't blame her. She had been half dead when he found her, injured, cold, terrified, and the scars on her body, they told a story without words. He stood and poured some warm soup into a metal bowl. She tensed immediately. Jack paused, then placed the bowl gently on the table near her. "I'll leave it here," he said softly. "You don't have to eat now." She didn't reply. Jack stepped back again and sat on the floor this time to make himself look smaller, less scary. She stared at the soup. Her nose twitched as she smelled it. Her stomach growled. Still, she didn't move. After several minutes, her small hand slowly reached out. She pulled the bowl closer, then looked at him again. Jack didn't move. Finally, she brought the spoon to her lips and tasted the soup. Just one sip, then another, faster. She was starving. Jack smiled a little. "That's it, eat slowly, it's warm." She looked at him sharply as if unsure if he was mocking her. But there was no laughter in his eyes, only calm. The girl whispered something in her own language again. Jack picked up the translator from the nightstand and passed it to her, staying far away. She hesitated, then touched the button. "Why? Help me?" came the soft voice through the device. Jack leaned back. "Because you needed help." The girl's face tightened. "Humans don't help." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You've met bad humans?" She nodded slowly. "Bad. Many. Chains. Hurt. Sell." His jaw clenched. So she had been a slave. He spoke gently. "Not all of us are the same." She looked away, unconvinced. There was silence for a while. Then Jack tried again. "What's your name?" Her hands tightened around the blanket. She looked down. "No name." Jack blinked. "No name?" She shook her head. "They took it." His heart ached. "Well," he said quietly, "you can still have one. Even now." She didn't respond. She looked small. Lost. Later that night, as she lay on the bed, Jack brought in a small first aid kit. "I need to clean one of your wounds," he said gently. "Only if you say yes." She looked at him, unsure. He knelt beside the bed and opened the box. "Just this one." He pointed to her shoulder where the bandage was soaked. She didn't move, didn't speak. He waited. Then, slowly, she nodded. Jack gently peeled the bandage away. The wound was deep. It looked like it had been burned, and then cut again. "A scar over a scar?" "Who did this to you?" he asked. She said nothing. Jack cleaned it with care. His hands were steady, but his heart wasn't. He had seen many wounds in his life, but never on someone so young, so broken. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She just stared at the ceiling, her eyes wide and distant, like she had learned not to feel pain anymore. When he finished, he rewrapped the bandage and stood up. "You were very brave," he said. She looked at him for a second, then she whispered something. He held out the translator. She pressed the button. "Name," she said. "Tiraya." Jack smiled. "Tiraya. That's a beautiful name." She blinked. "You won't tell them?" "Tell who?" "The hunters." Jack froze. "The ones who want me," she said. "They follow. They never stop." Jack's voice turned serious. "Why are they chasing you?" Tiraya looked down. She didn't answer. Then she whispered, "Because I said no." "No to what?" Jack asked. She clutched the blanket tighter. to being a weapon. Jack didn't fully understand, but he understood enough. This girl had escaped something terrible, and whatever it was still looking for her. He looked out the window. The fog had lifted, but the night had fallen hard. Jack turned to her again. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "I won't let anyone take you." She didn't answer, but for the first time, she closed her eyes and didn't look afraid. She finally spoke. One word: the storm came at midnight. Outside, the wind howled like a beast in pain. Dust slammed against the walls. The power flickered twice, then went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Inside Jack's workshop, the emergency lights hummed to life, glowing soft orange. Jack reached for a flashlight and turned to check on her. Tiraya was already awake. She sat up, eyes wide in the dim light, breathing fast, like something terrible was coming. Her small hands trembled on the blanket. She looked toward the door. "They're close," she whispered without the translator. Jack grabbed the device and handed it to her. "What do you mean?" She didn't take it. She just stared at the door and said, "Run." Jack frowned. "Tiraya, what?" She finally pressed the translator. Her voice came through, shaky but clear. "Run. You. Leave me." Jack stared at her. "No." She shook her head. "They smell me. They track my blood." His eyes moved. To the bandages on her arms, he hadn't thought of that. "Then we'll stop the bleeding. We'll cover the scent." "No. Too late." Her voice cracked. "They always find me." The sound of the wind grew louder. Something heavy hit the roof. Jack moved quickly. He shut the metal shutters, locked the doors, and covered the windows. Then, he went to the back of the workshop, a small hidden room behind a wall of toolboxes. He opened it. "Tiraya, in here." She looked at him like she didn't believe it was real. "A safe room," he said. "Soundproof. Heatproof. They won't find you here." She stood slowly, weak on her legs, and stepped inside. Jack followed, sealed the door, and turned on a quiet light. There was a bed, water, even a little heater. Tiraya sat down, looking around. "Why do this?" she asked. Jack sat across from her. "Because I know what it's like to be hunted." She looked confused. Jack pointed to a long scar down his jaw. Not all humans have good pasts either. There was silence between them. Then Tiraya said something quietly in her own language. Jack reached for the translator again. This time, she waved it away. And then, she spoke in broken English. "Safe. Here?" Jack blinked. That one word, safe, it echoed in the small room. He nodded. "Yes, safe." Her body relaxed just a little. She took a shaky breath. "Before I head home," he waited. "My people trained children. Some for power, some for death." Jack leaned forward. "And you?" She looked at her own hands. "I said no. I escaped. And now they want you back." She nodded once. Jack asked, "Why come this far? Why Earth space?" Tiraya stared at the wall. Her voice was low. "He told me to." "Who?" She didn't answer. A loud bang shook the building above. Jack grabbed a small screen near the wall. Two shadowy figures walked past the outside camera. Unmarked suits. Strange helmets. "They're here," he said under his breath. Tiraya's body tensed. But Jack didn't panic. He stood. "Stay here. Don't come out no matter what." She grabbed his arm. "Don't go. They kill." Jack gave her a small smile. "Not today." Then he was gone. Upstairs, Jack turned off all main lights and activated a defense system he'd built years ago from scrap. Shock traps, smoke bursts, steel doors. They weren't weapons, but they'd buy him time. He watched as the intruders broke the front lock. Two tall aliens in black armor stepped inside, scanning the room. Jack stayed hidden behind a wall panel. "Where is she?" One hissed in broken common. The other sniffed the air. She was here. Jack's hand moved to a trigger switch. The first step inside triggered a smoke burst. Boom! The hunters jumped back, shouting. Jack ran across the room, slamming a metal beam to block their path. He tossed a canister and it exploded into sparks. Then he bolted to the side exit. But he wasn't fast enough. One of them spotted him. "Human!" A stun bolt flew past him, missed by inches. Back in the safe room, Tiraya heard everything. But she didn't hide under the blanket. She didn't cry. She stood up. She looked at the door. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also something stronger. Not again. She wouldn't run forever. Hunters are coming. Tiraya stood in the quiet of the safe room, fists clenched. Above her, the ceiling shook with noise. Thuds, shouts, and the sharp blast of energy weapons. She could feel the danger through the walls. She had run before. She had hidden. She had begged. But not this time. This time, someone had stayed behind for her, and she couldn't sit still. She stepped out of the safe room. Upstairs, Jack dove behind a metal bench as another energy bolt flew overhead. One hunter stormed through the broken wall. The other scanned the workshop like a machine, silent and focused. They didn't speak. They didn't ask. They came to take. Jack reached into his pocket and clicked a small button. An old engine in the corner suddenly roared to life. Blinding lights and deafening sound. The hunters turned, confused for 1 second. Jack used it. He rolled out, grabbed a welding torch, and swung it at the nearest hunter's helmet. It sparked, but barely scratched. The second hunter kicked him hard in the cow chest. Jack flew back, hit the wall, and dropped. Tiraya heard it. She climbed the stairs, body weak, legs shaking, but heart strong. Her eyes locked onto the scene. Jack on the floor, struggling to breathe. And them, tall, cold, inhuman. One hunter turned and saw her. His voice, even through the helmet, sounded cruel. "You." She didn't move. He walked toward her. "You are property." Tiraya's hands trembled, but she didn't back away. "I'm not. You belong to the war breeders. You were chosen. I refused. You don't get to refuse." She looked past him at Jack. He groaned, trying to stand. The hunter raised a stun blade. Tiraya took 1 step forward, then another. Jack shouted, "No! Run, Tiraya!" She didn't listen. Her eyes glowed slightly, like something inside her had awakened. The hunter swung. She ducked. Her hand shot up and struck the side of his helmet with surprising speed. The helmet sparked, cracked. The other hunter charged toward her. Jack reached into his belt and tossed a flare grenade between them. Boom! The room exploded with light. All three were thrown back. Smoke filled the air. Jack crawled toward her. "Tiraya, you okay?" She nodded slowly, blinking through the fog. But the hunters were already standing. "Enough," one growled. They both raised their weapons. Suddenly, the back wall of the shop where Jack kept old junk burst open with a deep rumble. Something massive rolled in. Mech old Rusty, barely working. But Jack had kept it for a reason. He hit the remote. The mech stomped forward, eyes glowing red, fists slamming the ground. The hunters turned in surprise. Jack grinned. "Say hello to my old friend." The mech punched the first hunter through the wall. Tiraya grabbed Jack's hand and pulled him behind a crate. "You built that?" she asked, panting. "Half of it," he said. "The rest is duct tape and hope." She laughed weakly. It was the first time he'd heard her laugh. One hunter was down. The other tried to shoot at the mech, but the old robot just absorbed the blast. It swung a metal arm and hit the hunter hard. Electric sparks flew. Armor cracked. The second hunter didn't get up. Silence returned. Jack collapsed against the wall. "Remind me to fix that mech someday." Tiraya looked at the fallen hunters. "They'll come again." Jack nodded. "Then we'll be ready." She looked at him. Really looked. "You're hurt." "I've been worse." She reached toward him. Her fingers touched his arm. Just for a second, and for the first time she didn't pull away. Down below, something beeped on a broken comm link. A voice crackled. Target not. Secured, send backup, full unit, more were coming. The worst was still ahead, but now they'd fight together. A message from her past. The workshop was quiet again. The smoke had cleared. The mech stood frozen in the corner, sparks leaking from its chest. 2 hunters lay unconscious on the floor, their armor cracked like broken shells. But Jack didn't relax. He knew this wasn't over. He limped to the wall, wiping blood from his brow while Tiraya carefully cleaned his wounds. Her hands still shook, but there was focus in her eyes now. No more running. Where's that sound coming from? Jack asked suddenly. Tiraya looked up. A soft beeping echoed from beneath the floor. Slow, steady, unnatural. Jack followed the sound, to the corner behind an old shelf of tools. Tiraya followed. There, hidden in the cloth of her torn cloak, was a small silver orb blinking red. Tiraya froze. Her face went pale. She whispered in her own tongue. Jack looked at her. You know this? She nodded. That's my memory beacon. Jack raised an eyebrow. Memory what now? She sat on the floor, suddenly shaking. It records everything. My escape, my family, the truth. Jack gently handed her the device. Then it's time I hear the truth, Tiraya. She pressed the side of the orb. A soft hum filled the room. Then light poured from it. A 3D hologram appeared, glowing blue and shaking slightly. Jack stepped back as the scene unfolded. There she was, Tiraya, younger and cleaner, standing tall in royal robes beside a tall alien woman. Her mother, clearly. A crowd of warriors bowed before them. Then, panic, flashes of weapons, explosions, screams. The tall woman pulled Tiraya behind her, shouting at guards, "Protect the air, get her out now." The image trembled. Then, another voice entered, cold, sharp, familiar. The air denied her duty. She must be removed. Tiraya's uncle. The scene ended with a blast of light and Tiraya running down a corridor crying. The image froze. Jack said nothing. Tiraya sat in silence too. Until finally she spoke. I was born to lead my people. But they wanted me to become a weapon. Jack looked at her. What kind of weapon? They called it the voice of fire, a ruler who commands death, one who destroys entire species. They wanted me to kill. And you refused. She nodded. I chose mercy, I chose peace. Jack breathed out slowly. So they hunted you. They erased my name, called me broken. But my mother, she helped me escape. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. She bought you time. Tiraya's voice cracked. She died because of me. Jack shook his head. She died for your future. Outside clouds gathered again. But now Tiraya stood taller, stronger. She had faced her past and survived. Suddenly, the broken comlink on the hunter's belt made a noise again. Squad 3 lost contact. Send all remaining units to Zone 9. Target must be captured alive. Jack and Tiraya exchanged a look. She whispered, They're coming. More of them. Jack moved fast. Then we're not staying here. He began packing supplies, tools, fuel, his old sidearm. But Tiraya didn't move. She turned and looked at the hologram again. My past. They'll follow it wherever I go. Jack paused. What are you saying? She clenched her fists. We stop them, not run, not hide, not anymore. Jack smiled faintly. You finally sound like a leader. She looked at him. No, she said softly. I finally sound like me. Jack placed the orb in his bag. So what now? Tiraya walked to the workbench and picked up a small blade he'd made. She turned it in her hands and looked back. We go to the old tower. There's one last beacon there. If I reach it, I can send a signal to someone I trust. Someone who can help? She nodded. Jack tightened his jacket. Then let's move before the next storm hits. Behind them, the workshop that once felt safe grew dark again. But something had changed. Tiraya wasn't just a scared girl anymore. She was remembering who she was, and who she was meant to become. The final stand in the workshop. The wind howled again, but this time, it didn't shake Tiraya. She stood at the edge of the workshop's old skylight, staring into the black clouds above. Jack worked behind her, loading power cells, prepping weapons, and patching the damaged mech as best he could. This wasn't just a hideout anymore. This was the battlefield, and tonight, they wouldn't run. They would fight. Jack looked up. "You sure about this, kid?" Tiraya didn't turn. "They'll keep coming. Sooner or later we stop them right here." He tossed her a small shock blade. "Then let's make it a fight they remember." She caught it easily. An hour later, warning lights flashed red. Multiple ships were landing nearby. Too many. Jack checked the radar. 10, maybe more. Full hunter squad. Tiraya breathed in slowly. They sent their best. Jack smirked. Then they made their last mistake. He had laid traps across the workshop. Wires, flares, collapsing metal doors. Even the broken mech was rigged to explode if needed. Tiraya helped with the wiring. Her hands, once unsure, now moved with quiet purpose. At the center of it all, she placed her memory beacon on a raised panel, pulsing bright blue. "They want this," she said, "so we make them pay for coming." The hunters came in waves. The first two were fast, silent, masked, deadly, but they didn't expect the floor to drop beneath their feet. One fell into a pit of welding arcs. The other hit a wall of force from Jack's handmade sonic cannon. The third hunter stormed in behind them and grabbed Jack, slamming him into the wall. But before he could strike again, flash. Tiraya appeared from the shadows, her shock blade glowing. She slid under the hunter's legs, spun, and struck. Sparks flew. The hunter fell, gasping. Jack coughed, then grinned. "Remind me never to doubt you again." But they kept coming. 5 more. Then 3 more behind them. Too many. One of the hunters fired a plasma shot at the ceiling, breaking the frame. Fire burst down from above. The workshop groaned. Walls shook. Tools fell. Jack shouted, "Tiraya, the orb." She dashed through the chaos toward the memory beacon. But one of the lead hunters stood in her way. He was taller, stronger, armor plated black and red. The commander. "You were born to destroy, not to resist," he growled. Tiraya raised her blade. "I was born to choose," he laughed. "Then choose death." He struck, and she dodged barely. Jack tried to reach her, but 2 hunters tackled him down. He fought hard, blood running from his lip, but he was pinned. The commander raised his sword. Tiraya looked up, shaking. She whispered, "Mother, give me strength." And then, her eyes glowed. Not just faint light, but full, brilliant violet. Power surged from her body. She screamed, and a wave of energy exploded outward. The commander flew back, crashing into a support beam. Every hunter nearby fell like stones. Jack's jaw dropped. "What the hell was that?" Tiraya collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Her voice was soft. "The voice of fire. I didn't know it was still in me." The workshop groaned again. Cracks opened in the floor. Heat surged from the old generator. The beacon sparked. Jack ran to her. "We need to go. Now." "No," she said. She crawled to the orb. "The signal must go out." She placed her hand on it. Her blood touched the surface. The beacon lit up like a star. Then, it sent. A pulse of light shot up through the ceiling, into the sky, piercing. The storm clouds. It was a call, a message, a warning, and a promise. Behind them, the damaged mech beeped rapidly. Jack's eyes widened. "It's going to blow!" He grabbed Tiraya and ran. They jumped through the back exit as, boom! The entire workshop exploded behind them, flames lighting the sky. Tiraya looked back, eyes wide. Jack coughed. "Well, there goes my toolbox." She laughed through tears, They stood in the ash, wind still blowing. No more hunters, no more hiding. And in the sky, the beacon still burned. She wasn't just a girl. The sky had turned gold. Smoke drifted from the ruins of the workshop, and the memory beacon still glowed high in the sky like a second sun. The signal had been sent. But who would answer? Tiraya sat quietly on the edge of a hill, staring into the horizon. Her hair moved in the wind. Her face, burnt, bruised, was calm now, but her heart wasn't. Jack limped up behind her. He dropped down beside her with a heavy sigh. So, we lived. Tiraya nodded. For now. He glanced at her. You okay? She didn't answer for a moment. Then she said, I killed them. Jack tilted his head. You protected yourself. I used the voice of fire. I didn't want it. Jack stared at her. But you didn't burn everything. You didn't lose control. You aimed it. That power didn't use you. You used it. Tiraya looked at her hands. But if I'm not just a girl anymore, then who am I? Jack smiled. You're whatever you choose to be. Minutes passed in silence. Then above them something blinked in the sky. A ship, small, fast, silent. It wasn't a hunter ship. Tiraya stood quickly. That signal? Someone answered. The ship landed softly nearby. Its doors opened. Out stepped a figure in long white armor, an alien woman, older, marked with noble patterns. She bowed before Tiraya. Jack blinked. What's happening? The woman spoke in Tiraya's native language. Tiraya listened, nodded slowly, then turned to Jack. She was my mother's friend, hidden for years, waiting. She received the message. She came for you? She came to serve me. Jack frowned. You mean? Tiraya took a breath. I am the rightful heir, the one who refused war, the one who must now lead the broken people left behind. Jack stepped back. So you're a queen? Tiraya shook her head. Not yet, but I will be. She smiled, gently. If I survive it. Jack looked down at his hands. Guess this is goodbye. She didn't speak. Instead, she stepped closer. You gave me safety when I had nothing, a name when mine was taken. And you never asked for anything. Jack shrugged. That's just what decent people do. Tiraya leaned in, eyes soft. You're not just decent, you're rare. She pulled a small object from her cloak, a silver ring with alien markings. This is tradition, she said. We give it to those who save royal blood. Jack blinked. I don't need a reward. It's not a reward, she said. It's a bond. She placed it in his hand. I will return for it. One day. The alien ship rose into the sky moments later. Jack stood alone, holding the ring. As the ship vanished into the clouds, he whispered, She wasn't just a girl. 1 year later, on a peaceful green moon, news echoed across the galaxy. A new queen had risen, young, powerful, and merciful. Her first law, no more children will be trained for war. And in her hand, always, she wore a small ring, waiting, the end.